the James Bond theme is now like reserved for like he's doing something badass. Like you'd be playing GoldenEye and you accomplish like a key part of a mission, and they play the da-na, da-na, like just kind of like pump people up. And then here they play it.
He's in the lobby, right?
Yeah, he's walking. He just got off the airplane and he's walking through the airport lobby to the front.
Tips the bow boy. Dun 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 dun.
Welcome to A Cast with No Name. We are your hosts. I'm Jay.
And I'm Matt.
This is episode 74, and it's James Bond month. So, every November from now until the end of time, we will, at least in November, obviously. Because
5 more years.
Every November, 5 more years, probably 6, because there's only going to be 4 this month. But each week we'll focus on a different James Bond movie, and to start off our first James Bond month, we're kicking it off with the movie that started it all, 1962's Dr. No, starring Sean Connery as James Bond. But first, don't forget to visit our website, acastwithnoname.com, where you can listen to our entire episode library. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else that you would get your podcasts.
That's a butt.
But anywhere else you get your butt. Speaking of butt, we have Coop coming back with us, who joined us last week.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. And he's never seen this before.
Yeah, this is a first time watch for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. You've seen this before,
like
right?
Twice before.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Nice.
So fresh eyes kind of for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, when's the last time you saw it? You watch them every November?
Not all of them every November, but usually that's my my Bond mood. Just because, they always seem to get released like late October, early November. Mm-hmm. And then every Thanksgiving, whenever I would go to my grandparents when I was a teenager or whatever, half the time there'd be a new Bond movie, especially when I was early teens, is right when Pierce Brosnan's movies were coming out about every other year, around Thanksgiving. So
is that what got you into Bond, was Pierce? Or did your dad?
I remember seeing Goldfinger and a couple of the Timothy Dalton ones. His first one, which was not License to Kill,
and Living Daylights.
Yeah,
or the Living Daylights.
The Living Daylights,
yeah.
And I remember seeing that a couple times, but it wasn't until really probably GoldenEye was like my first.
Like most people.
Yeah, the first time I saw a full James Bond movie, and obviously in a theater. But then I think before that, like maybe Goldmember or From Russia with Love or something like that. But
I was the same way. I saw Goldfinger.
Yeah,
with
not
my dad.
Goldmember.
Goldfinger, yeah.
Goldfinger.
I wanted to say Goldfinger.
I know. He loves gold.
And watching this movie, I immediately thought of Austin Powers a couple of times. But anyway, I remember watching Goldfinger with my dad, but I really didn't get into it until like the 64 game, GoldenEye, that everybody played. Mm-hmm. That's when I really got into watching it.
I think I played the game before I saw the movie.
There you go.
And then when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, I remember this level as it was going along, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so...
64 is the reason for my love for James Bond.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See, I sucked at that game. I would always... I would have to play Golden Gun rules.
Oh, okay.
And if I could get the Golden Gun, then I would stand a chance. Everything else, proximity mines, fuck me. They just blow me into smithereens.
Dude, that's all we played. Like, on a loop. You get into fights over looking over someone else's screen.
Yeah. Screen
Stop
watching.
looking at my screen. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Probably, 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, last time you
saw this? Yeah.
Cool. All right.
The Connery ones I watch, probably Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Thunderball. You Only Live Twice. That's when it Connery's kind of got goofy. But those I feel like I watch quite a bit.
Right.
More so when we hop into the Roger Moore era, it'll be like watching him again, because I think I've seen all of his once. there might be one or two that I've seen.
Because they just get goofy, way too goofy.
It's
parody.
yeah, it's
fine.
yeah, it is what.
Well, all right. What are your first impressions? Cooper, let's start with you. What are your first impressions of Dr. No since this is the first time you've ever seen it?
It was like a time capsule.
Yeah.
For me. I mean,
That's a
like
good way of putting
the cars, the fashion, the architecture, just kind of the day-to-day, phones on the wall, phones on the table, people reading newspapers, people using pay phones. It was just like a real throwback to an era that even before us, I mean, we're old enough that we kind of had a little bit of that in our lives, but that was their day-to-day back then. And there was no other, there was no alternative. There's nothing moved forward for them. It was all kind of just that way.
Yeah. Much harder to do spy shit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You had to have some thought, for sure.
Yeah,
Did you like it, though?
Oh, yeah, I did like it.
You liked it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. You said time capsule. I that's another thing I like about these movies, especially kind of when you get into the gadgets. Like you kind of see at the time what was considered high tech,
Right.
where a lot of
Yeah.
the shit that they do now is like just in your phone,
Right.
Yeah.
but also sociologically, they're time capsules, like just how people were at the time, and the way we're going to be hopping through these movies. There's a very like each one you can kind of get an idea what was happening in society or the way society was moving just based on what's happening in these movies. And that's another reason why I like these, is that it just kind of, it always adapts with the times, or they take certain elements or certain headlines and kind of shift them in a way to just kind of direct it into a Bond movie to make it relevant for the audience.
Yeah.
But,
That's one thing I noticed about this movie was there was like no gadgets.
yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that there's literally it's just the gun. It's just the gun, like the silencer. That's like kind of, I guess, the gadget of the movie. But there really wasn't like a gadget.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the I don't know how big they were, but the Geiger counter, like the portable Geiger counter that he had. Yeah. Other than that, there wasn't much
In the
anything.
safe house, they had kind of the false wall that came down, and they had like the radio, but I think even that was reel to reel. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Not super techy.
The radio then was a little techy, but I mean, it was starting to become more commonplace because I think it was mainly they started becoming mainstream like 7 years prior, and so even that kind of technology, having it in your house or whatever, was kind of a little bit cutting edge. But
Man, is that sign of the times though, where you have to check in at a specific time to make sure that you're still there because there's no GPS or anything.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to check in.
yep.
If you don't check in, you're compromised or whatever. That's throwback.
What'd you think? This is your first time as an adult.
Yeah, I like it. I think all the reasons Coop said. I like looking at it because it looks, even with the extras and everything, you can tell they just grabbed people off the street in Jamaica, like, like they were actual people that lived there, and it just felt real. The people felt real. Like I said, the clothes, the architecture, all that stuff. It all felt like they shot it on locations, which I'm sure they did. There's no obviously there's no VFX or anything like that. It's just on location, on set. I liked how it took its time. I really like the middle of it where he's like investigating and like the scene where he's like just setting up his room to verify whether or not someone's going to ransack his, like where he's like setting traps. That takes a while. I feel like in today's cinema, they would just glance over that. They wouldn't even show because that scene was like 10 minutes long.
They put a laser in the corner of the room,
Yeah.
and that would be it. Yeah, but he has like the old school tricks with like the hair. And
Right.
yeah.
But it takes its time where like it'll just pan on him and he's just kind of like adjusting his collar. And then like he'll think about it and then he'll set the trap or whatever, and then he'll think about something else, and then he'll like sprinkle that dust on the briefcase or whatever. But it's just something that stood out because they wouldn't do that nowadays.
That's one of my favorite things in the books that Ian Fleming writes is like probably the first thing is like the way he describes food. Whenever Bond orders something from a restaurant,
Right.
he's just very descriptive, and it's like very simple stuff. It's like, a ration of eggs with black coffee, and like it's just like very short but accurate descriptions of food. The way he writes food is awesome, but there's also a lot of in the books is him prepping his room or just what he's thinking, and obviously which you can't really do in movies, but just the way he thinks in the books and the why of putting the hair on the thing. And but the books have quite a few of that, of him just kind of like booby trapping his room to see if someone messed with anything. Is another good thing that they get from the books that they actually show in this movie, which they don't typically do. They don't in the later movies.
Yeah, but yeah, I really like the middle. The ending's not very good. The third act is kind of terrible. But it didn't ruin the movie for me at all. Like the way it just kind of abruptly ends, and Dr. No is an okay villain. He's fine, but he's not like compelling like Goldfinger or
yeah, he's not as theatrical as like memorable.
Kind of monotone a little bit. Just the third act's okay. It's not that. It kind of dragged the movie down a little bit for me, a couple notches, but I still enjoyed it.
Okay. Nice. The third act, which spoilers for a fucking 60-year-old movie.
If you haven't seen it in 40 years.
Which if you like Bond, watch it, which you already have.
I mean, Sean Connery's excellent.
Yeah.
He's very good. I like him as Bond.
The end of the reason why they picked this book for the first movie is because of the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
It's a fairly straightforward story, because this was the, I think, 5th book that was written, sixth book, and when they picked this movie, they changed some things. So like in the book, when he's going through the rafters and like the water comes rushing at him and he's like in the vents or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was like originally like this maze. It was because after Dr. No kind of like knocks him out, and he wakes up in his cell, he's kind of like in a maze. And it was just a way for Dr. No to test Bond, to see how intelligent or see how much he could withstand. So it was kind of like a gauntlet that he had to go through. But they cut all that crap out because it would have been ridiculous. So he just had this built in a building just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he had to fight this giant squid. He was in a tank with this giant squid or something like that. It was
that would have been a better ending for the.
Yeah. They cut that out, and then they cut out Honey Rider. When Bond goes to rescue her, she's chained to the thing, and the water's kind of rushing in.
The boat ramp?
The boat ramp, and the water's just slowly filling up. Maybe it could have just been a retention pond.
Yeah,
it just always kind of like gives her trench foot over the course of 3 weeks or something.
Room 12, show me.
But there is supposed to be like all these sea crabs coming up to eat at her. Yeah.
Oh damn.
Why not?
But
sharks with laser beams attached to their heads.
But yeah, so the third act is a little weird in the movie. Yeah, just because they kind of chopped it up anyways from what they had in the book.
Right. And so of course I can tear it apart because I was on a nuclear powered submarine, and the reactor was hilarious to me.
I was curious to hear your input on the reactor.
It's all ridiculous.
I had a question.
The whole point
for you.
of it was so the point was they needed the nuclear power because they needed the signal from their dish TV
radio beam,
the tiniest satellite that they have hidden, because you don't want to show that.
Literally, the size of a dinner plate.
It's so small. So they needed a nuclear power source for the signal to be powerful enough to interrupt the communications of NASA. Is that why they need that power source?
They were trying to knock out the U.S. rocket program.
Yeah, the toppling to mess up the gyroscope or whatever they used for
all right, fair enough.
tracking with that.
Yeah, and that's like a 2-sentence line in the movie, and it's really kind of important that you know that, because that's why everybody's doing what they're doing. And it's I think M says it in 2 sentences, and then that's it, and then Bond leaves the office. It's okay, well,
it doesn't
I hope
matter.
You caught it. Yeah.
It's a MacGuffin. Sure. It's just there.
So when he comes back, and I think I forget what number they gave him when they picked up Bond and Honey from the swamp, and then they do the Geiger
Oh, and they're decontaminating them.
yeah. So there's like, oh, he's number is like 84 or something.
Yeah.
Like.
He's at 84.
Does that mean anything, or is that just a
It
random?
depends on the unit they're measuring. If it's
Okay.
millim, it's not that bad. But if it's rem, then he should be dead.
Okay.
So
Maybe
but-
it's metric.
it could be. The decontamination thing, obviously, that's Austin Powers when he gets unthawed and he's trying to steer him to the toilet. So he can take a piss.
Evacuation.
Yeah, exactly.
Evacuation complete.
Exactly. I didn't realize that until watching this again. But yeah, you can't just. It's not like you can be fully contaminated and then like soap and water is
Soap
going
and
to
water.
decontaminate you in 10 minutes. It's just not going to work.
They
They need to isolate you
worked
for
in the
like
movie.
months.
Oh.
They can't just scrub it off. Anyway, and when the reactor's in the water and it's like boiling,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're wearing suits because they don't want radiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
Heavy duty suits too, by the way.
That's not how it works. You need like shielding.
The poor guy had like a trash bag.
Yeah,
He looked
really.
like a fucking Stay Puft
Like an
guy.
air hose coming
Yeah,
to the back of it.
it looked like a Halloween costume with the
Yeah.
T-Rex that you see kids running around in.
No, if it without shielding, like everyone in that room would have been dead within like an hour. Because you can't just absorb that much radiation. You'll cook from the inside out and just die, bleed out. You need like lead shielding. It can't just be open where everybody is. So anyway,
But then it won't look as cool. Like that set design is awesome.
yeah, danger. I like how he's like,
Yeah, just turning the wheel.
like-
Let's get a little high. Let's turn
Yeah.
it down now.
Danger's like right in the middle, and they have this whole big area
Yeah.
to the right that's past danger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would you build it to where?
Why would you
could
want to go that? Yeah.
go farther?
I love the signs too. Like Family Feud was like abandoned building. That was anyway. But all that aside, the third act kind of was like you meet Dr. No. Finally, they had that little repartee between the two of them. He gets in the cell or whatever, and for whatever reason, it blows up. I don't know what that was all about. It was kind of just it blew up, and he was able to get out. That didn't make sense. But and then he's just controlling the reactor, and then it goes haywire, and then it blows up, and then you don't really. That's why he's not a compelling villain, because he's in it for like 5 minutes, and you really don't get anything beyond the conversation between him.
Yeah,
and
he's
Bond.
not a dynamic character at
No.
all. Like what was really interesting about this movie is kind of all the firsts that you see, and like when him and Bond are sitting down for dinner, and he does that classic villain explains the plan to the hero, and it's like, well, this is probably the first time this has happened
Yeah.
in cinema, and it's something that happens in basically every kind of
It's true.
Bond or adventure movie, and so like, yeah, he kind of spilled the beans right up front, and it's like, well, but why are you doing this? Just because the U.S. didn't hire you and the Soviets didn't hire you, so you joined an international terrorist group? Okay, like that was your only alternative.
And he wanted to test Bond to see if he could recruit him into Spectre. Was that the reason why he was?
Yeah, he said because he was of the people that he's encountered while he's been doing this, he was the smartest.
Okay.
And the only one that kind of gave him any kind of trouble. So he thought, he's like, oh, well, I could recruit him. And,
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, so since with this being the first one, there's a lot of things in here that obviously they didn't know what Bond would eventually be, but I do think it's as far like in regards to the franchises, there's not a lot of, in my opinion, franchises that start off really strong and continue to like hold up over time, because even though like there are parts of this that are just cheesy, like what the fuck, but this, I mean, it's the first Bond movie, but it's nowhere near the worst
Oh no.
Bond movie.
No.
But I find it interesting watching this. It's just a lot of the things that were already kind of set in place, like the title sequence. So there was no like special Bond song for it, like they typically do with like GoldenEye or Goldfinger, all the other Bonds pretty much after
Yeah.
this one. But you have the gun barrel sequence.
Yeah.
You have the title sequence, which was done by Maurice Bender, who did a lot of them, a lot of the early ones. But there's like certain things that are just kind of like off a little bit, to where like the James Bond theme starts off in the title sequence, but then I like how they play it. during shit that doesn't matter, because like the James Bond theme is now like reserved for like he's doing something badass. Like you'd be playing GoldenEye and you accomplish like a key part of a mission, and they play the dana dana like just kind of like pump people up. And then here they play it.
He's in the lobby, right?
Yeah, he's walking. He just got off the airplane and he's walking through the airport lobby to the front.
Tips the bow boy.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
They play it again when he's going into the hotel to check his messages at the reception desk.
Yeah.
And then
By the way, how old school is that? Going into like the hotel lobby. Hey, you have some messages.
Yeah.
And then like they have the table laid out with like the phones that you would call people back. Man, good old days.
But yeah, I like how they had some of the quirks in there that just kind of kept, at least with like Sean Connery's, to where, and Bond in general, I guess, is like when they were talking about toppling, the whole point of the movie. M mentions, he's like, "Do you know what toppling is?" And then Bond's like, "Well, if I remember correctly, it's blah blah blah." Like he just off toppling, no context.
Yeah.
It's just. I believe it's causing radio interference, especially with gyroscopic telemetry for navigation systems.
Like the Webster Dictionary definition of what toppling is.
But he has that, and then, which is just kind of like a trope of Bond, where he's a professional on everything, which there's a couple of scenes like that in the next movie we're going to be watching. But it'll just be the most random things, and... he'll just be a professional at it. And he's like, when he was eating dinner with Dr. No and he was trying to stash the knife and he picked up the Dom Perignon and he's like, "Easy, that's a 56 Dom Perignon." And he's like,
I prefer the
53 myself. But like shit like that, and then like the very, very tiny aspects of the character, which is just like very, like it's just a subtle that he does. Like he did it a couple times when he first met Sylvia Trench in the casino, and they're like kind of walking to the cashier table, or the cashier's cage, and she just says something. He's like, but like that's like a Sean Connery thing, to where he's always like,
That's all he needs. He just needs a grunt. He's just a handsome man.
I love that shit. I don't know why, but it makes me laugh.
Yeah. Well, what did you think of the the character attribute of Bond of being like the womanizer or whatever in this movie? Because I didn't think it was that bad, honestly.
Oh, I didn't either, but it was so overt. Like when you're watching it, especially early '60s, he was just like, "Be at my room, 3:00, see you there." Like, it just walks away, and sure enough, they show up. So,
yeah.
Obviously now it's like not.
Because it was 62. I think there was rules around. You can only show like someone kissing for like 5 seconds or less or something.
And I mean, in this movie, it was kind of, some people turned down this movie because of the sexual overtones.
Oh.
And but the producers and the director, Terrence Young, I think.
Terrence Young, yeah.
They knew it was overtly sexual, because in the book, I mean, it's like he bangs women. And it's just like more of like an animal side of him that, to where he's like, "Oh, you're attractive, I'm going to have sex with you," kind of a thing. Like it's, I mean, but in this, it's a little tongue in cheek.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Moore, I mean, it gets goofy in some of the movies, but yeah, it's not as bad. Now there's some other Sean Connery movies to where it's worse, to where it's kind of like, oh, that's, I guess that could be rape. But
I guess.
But I mean, even then it was still kind of, because they played it off as kind of not absurd, but just a little tongue in cheek, or just a little like not fantastical, but a little bit more fantasy side of things. But yeah, it's not.
I did love how the second chick he was with, Miss Taro, who works for Dr. No,
yeah.
and he knows that he works for her, or she works for him, but he has sex with her anyway.
Yeah.
And he kind of just throws.
Yeah.
Twice. It's pretty good.
Yeah, he wanted to go out to dinner. She was like, no. He was like, all right, I'm calling a cab. Like, he was just done with
Yeah. Well, no, calls a cab, and then they bang again, and then he has her arrested.
Has her arrested. That was funny. Oh. Because she deserved it. She set him up to die.
She's the bad guy. Yeah. She's the bad
Coop,
guy.
she's the bad guy in this situation.
She did deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Did you notice that the all of the male Jamaican residents, were they all dubbed over?
So I don't know if all of them were, but I know some
Coral
people,
wasn't, but
no, the
guy with the blowhorn, get out there with your hands up. I'm like,
I didn't hear one Jamaican. I didn't hear one Jamaican accent the whole time.
So I'm sure they probably dubbed some people over, or they just had people that just plain weren't Jamaican. Now I know like Honey Rider, she was dubbed over.
Was she?
Yeah, because she has. I remember I saw her speak, not personally, but like on some kind of Bond tribute thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was like the 50th year or the 40th year thing, but I saw her speak in person, and she has a thick accent.
Like, is it Swedish? Or
yeah, it's kind of like whatever her nationality is. I think German or Ursula Andress. She is German.
Okay.
So
she talked like Arnold?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a very thick accent, and you could, and I was like, she didn't sound like that in the movie. I mean, she was dubbed over.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
But I mean, I'm sure they probably dubbed other people over too.
Sure.
Dubbing will also be a theme in next movie.
Perfect.
But But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they did. I mean, there was a lot of sound issues even back then.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of older Chinese films is there. Like a lot of the joke of the dubbing of people's mouth moving and it being mismatched. Yeah, it's being dubbed from another language to English, but even recording audio back then, it was on separate audio tracks. Trying to sync it up would be an issue, or like getting sound on location, or just trying to ADR it and stuff back then.
Yeah.
It was just a pain. But
well, here, you want to show the clip of one of the greatest lines in cinematic history?
À la banque.
I need another 1,000.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Mr.
There it is.
went from 6 to midnight.
He's just so goddamn cool.
And that's that's the only time he says that the whole movie.
I know.
Like such an iconic line that you know everybody hears it, everybody knows where it's from, and he said it one time.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, and he only said it that way because he was playfully flirting with Sylvia Trench, because that's how she said it. So he was just kind of imitating her when he introduced himself, but then that just happens to be how he always introduces himself.
And this came out in '62. I mean, people always say like Brando revolutionized acting, but like even in this, Sean Connery, like in terms of like the likable action star that like Harrison Ford or Denzel Washington, whatever. Pick a major star that does action movies or whatever. Like he's not like overtly cheesy when he's delivering his lines. He's got a presence. Obviously, the fight scenes are they're fine, but they improved with time. But I mean, I think in 1962 when this came out, I mean, did anyone ever led a movie like this with that kind of like gravitas? I can't think. I'm trying to think of somebody, but I can't really think of anything.
Like, I mean, I don't know. It's tough just because it's Bond, and I don't know if it's just because we're looking back on it knowing that it's iconic. But I mean, his delivery, like, he's very understated. He's very like laid back with it. He's not over the top in any way. I mean, you mentioned Brando. First person I always think of is Jimmy Stewart,
right?
As far as like the birth of modern acting. I look at Jimmy Stewart because, like, It's a Wonderful Life. It's like a little over the top at times, but I mean, a lot of his movies that he did, his line delivery was, I mean, just awesome. Like Rear Window and everything else, like back in the 50s that he did, to where I feel like, I mean, him, and I think but Sean, to your point, I mean, I think Sean Connery's delivery of that character, I mean, definitely, obviously made him a star,
Right.
but I mean,
Because I'm thinking of like, because we watched Lawrence of Arabia last year, and that was what, 60, 63? I don't remember. It was around this time.
Yeah.
But the way that those actors would like, it was definitely like stage
Yeah, it's
acting
it's
in a
theater
motion
acting.
picture. Theater
And-
acting, yes, thank you. And maybe I didn't watch a ton of 50s movies, and maybe, you know, I'm sure that was done. That was how acting was for a majority of people, other than, like you said, Jimmy Stewart or Brando or somebody. And you just don't get that in this. None of the actors are actually doing that in this movie.
yeah, everyone's very, and I think part of that might lend itself just to the character and the subject matter because, I mean, you get some weird characters in some later Bond movies that are just like a little bit cartoonish, but then, but with this, I mean, Bond is just pretty much just always calm, always
He knows what's going on.
knows what's going on, sure of himself. So I think part of it is like just having that character, helping him to be able to just give that kind of performance. But same thing with Dr. No, you get a lot of these villains, they're very calculating and everything else. So I think the subject matter just lends itself to understated performances and more serious delivery.
All right. Was Dr. No's outfit Dr. Evil's?
Oh,
When his pants, when he came in with the pants, you know, and they
Now
just
that-
showed his legs, I was like, are those Dr. Evil's pants?
Close, but no. So we'll see. Probably, maybe not the. Nope. Probably next movie. You will,
Okay, all right.
You will see the Dr. Evil costume, but
pretty close though. I'm looking it up now. It's pretty close.
yeah, but yeah, because Dr. No has that the
Yeah, he has-
Japanese
yeah.
style aesthetic. One thing that I liked that I didn't really pick up on until I read the book. So in the book, if you watch the movie, everyone that is, with the exception of Dent, the the geologist professor, everyone who works for Dr. No, like the spies, the lady with the camera, and then the secretaries, everyone that works for Dr. No that is undercover has kind of like a Japanese or Asian look to them. And in the book, that's because that I think that's like his children.
Oh, okay.
Like he has like a crap ton of kids, and they're all.
Oh, he was just laying pipe for decades.
I mean, they were all like biracial because he was biracial. So there was he would have kids that were like half Japanese, half black, half Japanese, half European, half Japanese, half whatever. And I mean, it was just like him just, laying pipe everywhere, but it was like all of his kids, not all of his henchmen. It's not like he had like 200 kids that were all running around.
He wasn't Genghis Khan or anything.
Yeah. But no, there's like a collective and that's how he used his network.
Gotcha.
And they don't mention it. I mean, they mention his spies, but they don't mention that it's like his daughters and sons that are actually younger that are doing all the spy shit for him, or like have weaved themselves into Jamaican like bureaucracy and police stations and positions of power to be able to do this.
That was probably too perverse for that time.
Yeah, probably.
And so he financed it by, I was trying to remember if I got that right, by stealing from the Chinese, is it government or like Chinese mafia?
I think so, or the Yakuza.
Yeah, he was part of a Chinese criminal organization. Yeah, and he took their money and ran with it, is what he said. He came to the States.
Yeah.
And
$10 million.
$10 million, yeah. And it only cost him $1 million to finance this nuclear.
No, $1 million just for the aquarium.
Oh, for the aquarium. Money well spent.
So, all right, guys. So my master plan, $9 million.
I was like,
are you saving the $1 million? Nope. Aquarium.
Wait till you hear this.
when they showed the aquarium, I was like, are those bluegill? What kind of aquarium is this?
Little side trivia. They had nothing to show for the projection of it, so they just found stock footage of an aquarium and they threw it up there.
Really?
And they're like, it's fucking fish. Like, why are they so massive? and so that's why they added the line.
The
that
convex.
explains
The
convex
convex
of the
glass.
glass, and the glass is so thick that it makes them look bigger. But it was nice that even when they incorporated that, Bond even had a quip like, just like, so you're a small fish still pretending that you're a big fish, or like something to that
Yeah,
effect.
Yeah, that was
But-
good.
Depends
Yeah.
on what side of the mirror you're on, Mr. Bond. What did you think of his makeup? Because James Weissman's like an English theater actor, the guy who played Dr. No. I liked how they.
Oh,
It was
wait.
like Breakfast at Tiffany's with like what's that actor's name?
Mickey Rooney.
Yeah.
They, wait till we get to.
Oh boy, does it get worse?
You Only Live
Awesome.
Twice, when they try and pass Sean Connery off as Japanese.
Oh boy.
And you have this 6'3" fucking Scottish guy hunched over trying to make himself look short, like walking around fucking Japan like an asshole.
Awesome. Maybe this is one of the better ones, right? Because everything's toned down.
Yeah.
They don't go to 11 like Spinal Tap.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Oh god, yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like there wasn't a ton of action scenes. Like they had that one driving sequence, and then like the third act where everything was blowing up.
Yeah, he had
And,
a
like,
little hand to hand,
Little hand to hand here and there, but nothing
like
too crazy.
flipping people over, like
Yeah,
that's
like
his go-to.
judo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little judo flip.
Now talk. I love how like they get into a fight. I mean, they just
I know they're taking a break and
they're taking a
both pulling
break.
out a
Pull
cigarette.
out a cigarette. Now
smoking.
talk. Now talk to me, or else I'll do that again.
Slap it around.
Good.
Yeah, not a lot of action, and that's. I mean, you mentioned like him trying to solve
Yeah, it didn't matter. I mean,
the
it doesn't-
mystery. I like that aspect about it. I mean, you don't. There's a couple of those moments, like in like Casino Royale, like to where he's kind of solving some things, but it's nothing to that effect. Where
Yeah.
it felt like a detective story almost, like he's trying to solve.
This definitely
A
felt like a
mystery.
detective.
More story driven than it
Yeah,
was.
for sure.
Explosions and karate fights
Yeah.
and all that. Yeah.
And but yeah, that's one thing I like about it. Of course, the books kind of had something to do with that too. But as far as this, which is established history with M and Moneypenny, like they don't dive into it. They just two characters go. And of course, I mean, these books were wildly popular at the time too. So I'm sure a lot of people had reference. They knew
Sure.
who Moneypenny was, so they probably didn't have to introduce. I mean, some people probably went not knowing who James Bond was, but I like movies that do that. They just introduce two characters. You already know they have a history just by their rapport, and they don't have to go into it like, oh, where did you meet so and so? Because we got to explain everything to it doesn't matter. They met at work or
Right.
whatever. That's something that I like. The especially with, I mean, just little shit with like M and Bond. Which again, I think it was in the book, but when he's leaving, but M knows him well enough, he's like, leave the Beretta,
Yeah.
and because that's how well he knows them.
Sure.
Just like little things like that, you don't really get a lot in movies nowadays, to where you can just infer a lot more based on the little that you've seen because it's so well written.
I do like how they dedicated like a scene to explain the what's his gun again? Is it-
The Walther PP7.
Right,
yeah.
right, right.
So that was
The
all-
Americans swear by it.
Or, I'm sorry, Walther PPK.
Yeah.
PPK, yeah.
And that was also in the book. So
Okay.
there was I don't know if they mentioned him by name, but I think it was like in the book they called him like Boothright or Boothroyd. So again, this was the 6th book. In the previous 5 books, Bond always had a Beretta, and I think it was like 25 millimeter Beretta, and that was his main gun. And one of the fan letters that Ian Fleming had gotten was a guy who I think was in intelligence. I mean, Ian Fleming worked in intelligence too in World War II, but I think this guy Boothroyd, I'm spacing on his name, wrote to Ian Fleming and said a field agent wouldn't use that gun. It's like it's too small. It doesn't have enough stopping power, and he would use like a Walther, or like he gave him like a variety of guns, and so they picked the Walther. And so as a payback or a thank you, Ian Fleming named the quartermaster who gives him the gun in the book Boothroyd. So that was in the book.
Yeah, that's a good touch.
And so that whole interaction of changing the gun and everything else was there too.
I just don't think that would not be in a modern movie.
No,
No.
No, nobody would care what kind of gun.
No,
but
no
yeah,
one would care.
Yeah.
but they were, I mean, it's funny to see what they took from the source material and then what they took out. I mean, they left out the ridiculous maze of Gauntlet stuff at the third act, but
Yep.
but yeah. I just remembered. All right, so we were talking about the sexual overtones or whatever.
Sure. Let's talk more about it.
When they're on the beach and Honey is telling Bond like her backstory, and she's like, "Oh yeah," and then the governor or the guy who I was staying with let me stay with them after my dad had passed, and then till one night he then I had to do something, and Bond's like, "Oh, what?"
Go on.
He's like, "Go on." He's like,
Oh my.
and I had to sleep with him. He's like, "Oh, what happened after that?" and then what happened? And he's but then she says, "Oh, I poisoned his drink, or I did whatever."
She put a Black Widow spider.
Yeah,
under
put
it.
a Black Widow
Yeah,
spider,
yeah.
and like the look on his face was just
oh
like,
my
"Oh
God. Crazy.
He's like,
This crazy bitch.
I was like, "Man, that's." And she's like, "Did I do wrong?" And he's like, "Well, as long as you don't go making a habit of it."
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like, "What?" He's like, "Well, as long as you don't do it to me, because I'll just leave us on the boat for a while longer."
Right. That's very true.
Which I love too in that shit. It's like they get rescued and they do the whole boat thing, and
Yeah,
Felix
like
comes, gets them, and then he's just like, he lets it go. Like, you imagine the people like trying
what
to
are you
tow
doing?
his
Hey,
back.
dude, we just
Like-
drove out here to save you.
Like the person's
What
just
are we
like,
doing?
"Fuck!" I was like, "I'm missing my kid's birthday for this shit. Like, I gotta wait for this guy to get his
All
dick
right,
wet."
turn it around again. We'll give it back. This is the last time we're doing this, Bond.
What was that guy's name? The CIA agent?
Felix.
Felix is just looking at him like, oh, Bond.
Yeah.
Naughty Bond. Doing what Bond does.
There he goes, getting his pickle attack off. But
He could have just kept it tied onto the boat. I mean, I'm sure it was a pretty long haul.
yeah,
Only a 15-minute boat ride he got going on there.
I know he's not gonna last that long.
They probably would have had all those sailors just staring at him.
Yeah.
Haven't seen a woman in months.
Not to mention they're all gonna die, because didn't that place just have a meltdown?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Fallout.
Everyone's
that one. Yeah, I forgot about that
dead.
aspect.
Space Race is okay, but Jamaica was just wiped the fuck out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love Coral in this. Coral is actually in several, at least a couple of the books.
Okay.
And
This is the last one he's in, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. The
yeah.
dragon.
So
That's not a dragon. You tell me what that is.
so Coral was in. I think he was introduced. He was introduced in Live and Let Die. So
Okay.
that was the second book that was written. And so by the time Dr. No happens, Felix and Quarles are already like close friends. Like they've already had the adventure together or whatever. And but no, I love Coral in this because it's the only guy that could take like broken glass to the face and just like
Didn't even flinch.
wipe
Yeah.
it once.
No big
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
Doesn't even hit her after
No.
that. It's just like
He did offer to break her arm, though.
yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Nice to offer.
But Bond treats him like a punk, like the whole time. Like that. Like what was it? I mean, they get to the Crab Key Island, and they get the boat in. And Bond's like, "Cover the boat,"
Yeah.
and just like orders him about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the guy's not in the. He's a local helping you out, and he's like, "Cover the boat. We need to get some sleep." I'm going to sleep over here. As he's walking away, his Coral's just covering the boat. And then when the people come on the machine guns, and he's walking with Honey Rider's like, go, hey, Coral, go get cover over there. And then he like runs off with Honey as like the machine gun.
Yes, sends him to the front lines.
Taking grenades.
And I think he told him at one point, it's like, fetch me my shoes. And
oh yeah, he said the word fetch, and I was like, whoa, that's a bit much.
He started calling him Captain though after a while.
oh, Coral?
Coral started calling him Captain.
Coral
yeah.
always called him Captain.
Oh, okay.
And
I kind of got the sense that was just like what Coral called people.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because
Like,
he
hey,
chartered a
buddy.
boat
Or
and-
say, yeah, hey, Captain, yeah.
Nope.
Gotcha. I love how they were telling stories of Crab Key Island. Like, I know a bunch of people that went out there and they didn't come back.
Yeah, I know.
And
the
then,
whole fucking island's filled with like 400 people.
well,
all
that
working
and
in a
that
line.
and this, you fucking what's her face? Honey Rider just sort of swims up on the beach collecting seashells. It's like no one thought to pick up this girl. I've been coming here for years. This is $50 in Miami. It doesn't matter though.
It doesn't.
No.
It's all right. The I don't know what I'm laughing at.
Please share.
They kind of did some goofy stuff like that, oh yeah, we know this random person is coming up on the beach, but don't worry about
Doesn't
it.
matter.
It's fine. We're
She's
not an
hot.
international terrorist organization. She's hot. She can come collect shells, whatever. They like, and when they're at the cabana, it's Felix Bond and Coral, and they're having like this secret like planning it out, and the girl takes her picture, and they're like, get her. And it's like, well, this could have been avoided if you guys would have done this in like an office or like
Or
not at the cabana party with
your
200 other
hotel
people.
room.
Yeah,
Someplace.
literally anywhere else besides a party.
And I had to remind myself, when the three blind men in the beginning of the movie shoot the Strangeway, I think his name was. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, oh yeah, there's no surveillance, there's no security cameras. I'm like, I'm such an idiot. I was like, these guys would have been caught right away.
Yeah.
And then like when they attempt to assassinate Bond, it's like in the exact same spot where they murdered that Strangeways guy. You would think they would have like some sort of security, I don't know, upgrade at all at this club where supposedly like CIA and MI6 hang out. Nothing.
Nah.
It's not worth it.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if the CIA can't protect these guys,
It's true. Doesn't matter. But yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well, do you recommend it
absolutely.
for like the average?
Oh yeah. Well, for the average movie watch, I feel like
Do you think people would like it? Or they think
know.
they couldn't get over his?
because I think Christy humors me when I watch these things, and because she always falls.
Do you think
asleep
she
on the
really
couch.
likes it?
I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a couple that she likes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's tough. If someone's not a fan of James Bond, I don't know if there's much
Yeah.
there.
yeah.
Yeah, I
For
agree.
the average, like, so if someone's just going in blind and it's like, oh, I've never seen a James Bond movie, I would not say, oh, start with Dr. No.
Right.
Because it only gets, doesn't only get better, but it's like, it's not the first one that I would recommend.
Right.
If you're a fan of the books or you're a fan of James Bond, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like this movie is it's a good James Bond movie. I don't know if I would say it's it's not a bad movie by any means,
No.
but it's tough. How do I want to say this? I don't know if the average moviegoer today would like it. I mean, it's not like considered a classic James Bond movie, but I don't know if it's considered a classic movie. It's not like I think it holds up, but it's not like
Jaws.
it's not like Jaws or like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid or like some older movies like that to where it's like, yeah, and like it's still got it. And I mean, there's parts of it, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a lot of it's dated, but I think for me, that's just part of the charm of the movie. And that's why I love about these movies is that as time goes on, they get more and more dated. And and I think I like it mainly just from nostalgia.
Yeah.
Just being around it growing up or watching a lot of it in the past like 10, 15 years. But average moviegoer, I doubt that they would
Like it.
be. Yeah, you get some, I don't know, some 19-year-old asshole that, I don't know, what the fuck, what do they watch? Like
The nightclub?
Harry Styles or some
Fortnite?
bullshit. I don't,
For TikTok?
yeah, I don't know, whatever the fuck people watch now. Yeah, they're probably not. They're not going to be into
I agree
this,
with that.
But
Yep. I guess I recommend it for James Bond fans, but yeah, average moviegoers probably wouldn't like it all that much.
yeah.
They'd probably get mad at me for recommending it.
If
Yeah.
you like storyline, and I mean that's like we said before, it's a story, it's a story driven movie, and so it's like the mystery aspect. Bond gets sent to figure out why this agent went missing, and if you kind of like movies like that, then yeah, you'd probably like it. But it's not your typical modern spy movie where there's big explosions and crazy gadgets and that kind of thing. So,
Well,
Yeah.
there's one big explosion, but
well, yeah,
but yeah, it's not like it. This is before, because Bond really sets the spy movie trope,
Right.
And it's before all that happened.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if you've never seen a Bond movie, watch this, and if you like it,
Absolutely.
oh my
Yeah.
God, you are going to have a fantastic time with the rest of James Bond movie month.
That's right.
So, anything else on?
No, I'm good.
good. Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, we are going to continue James Bond movie month. James Bond month. I don't know, whatever. November. Next week. So we're not going to do the next movie that was made was From Russia with Love. But we are not doing that. We are going to be hopping actors. So to kind of give a rundown, next week we are going to hop to the person who played James Bond next, which is George Lazenby. And he
That
was
nobody
only-
remembers.
some people remember him. People call him like, a lot of people say he's the worst Bond, and their only reasoning is because he was only in one movie. And I'm
Yeah.
like, doesn't mean he's the worst.
Right. But he's like the trivia question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah, a little
Who
bit.
is only in
Yeah.
one James Bond? Who played James Bond one time, and he put 4 different selections. Like, who's gonna pick George Lazenby?
Yeah. Well, actually, there was another there's a TV show called Climax that actually it was aired in '57, I think.
Was that on Cinemax?
No, it was a episodic TV show that had like adventure stories or something like
Huh.
that. Like, but they had a short story, I think, or one episode called Casino Royale, I think, and it had
Somebody else played James
some
Bond.
American asshole that played him for the episode or whatever, and his name escapes me. I've never seen it, but never wanted to. But anyways, so we are going to be watching On Her Majesty's Secret Service and talking about that, and that'll be next week. And then the week after that, then we go to another different James Bond with Roger Moore, and then we will go to finish it up with. We're going to skip Timothy Dalton, not because of any reason, but just to. We're going to finish it up with Pierce Bronson. So.
Yep.
And then next year
We'll do Timothy Dalton.
we'll do Timothy Dalton, probably another Connery, and then then a Daniel Craig,
And then a Roger Moore, and then a Roger
Yeah.
Moore, then a Roger Moore.
But yeah, so that's next week. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, 1969.
Till next time, Jay.
Till next time, Matt. Thanks for joining us again, Coop.
Happy to be here.